Jesus was brought privately before Hanan, son of Seth, who, after questioning Jesus, sent him to the supreme council of the Jews, which was assembled. He also sent a message saying, "This man is deluded, but nonetheless dangerous, and these are troubled times." When Jesus was taken away, Simon Peter followed at a distance, and after Jesus was brought from the residence of Hanan, he followed and came to the forecourt of the temple, but could not go beyond because of the disturbance. Servants lit a brazier of charcoal and stood warming themselves, for the night was cold, and Peter stood with them. And while he stood there, a relative of the priest Haggadol, named Joseph, but called John, a follower of Jesus in secret, came and spoke to the woman at the door and went into the chamber hall. And he also spoke to Peter. Then a maidservant came and spoke with the woman at the door, who came over to Peter and said, "You are one of the Galileans' followers." But Peter said, "I am no friend of his. You must be mistaken." However, the woman persisted, saying, "Your speech betrays you." Then she cried out to those about the brazier, "Beware, he is one of the Galilean sorcerer's followers." Then the men clustered about Peter and said, "Oh, certainly you're a Galilean." And some said, "We had seen him with this rebel." Then they said to Peter, "Did you not cause trouble in the temple? We have seen you there." Then the men said, "The woman is right. You are a Galilean. Your speech witnesses against you." Others said, "He's just a Galilean," and then they laughed. Peter then became angry and shouted, "Why do you pester me? I do not know the man. I have heard about him, but I do not see him. I've never saw him." And then the other disciples came out and told the men to leave Peter alone. He took him by the arm and went out through the gateway. Or the other disciple, I think it was one. As they went, a rooster crew, for the fowls were in the city. And Peter wept bitterly, for he had failed the test. The other had compassion on Peter because of the weakness of the flesh. And Peter said, "I will make amends." Then the disciple took Peter to a safe place nearby. The Supreme Council had assembled the night in the chamber of hewn stone within the great temple. Though the Roman law did not permit men to sit in judgment during the night hours, the Supreme Council was afraid because of the mood of the people. When Jesus stood before the council, he was asked, "Are you the Messiah, Elohim's anointed, who will deliver us?" Jesus replied, "I could deliver the people if you would let me do so." The priest Hagdol, son-in-law of Hanan, sat with the council, and he said to Jesus, "Are you a Galilean?" When Jesus replied that he was, the priest Hagdol said, "Surely you, being a learned man, know that no prophet will come from that place." Jesus made no reply. Then a man named Nicodemus said to Jesus, "The Torah does not condemn any man without trying to understand his motives. Tell us, why do you do these things?" Jesus answered, "Is it not written that if the people are to be saved, there must be a suffering deliverer, who will also be the anointed of Yahweh?" Nicodemus then said to the council, "If this man is what he claims, he is harmless, for he brings suffering to no one except himself." Then another counselor said, "I myself have heard him say he comes not to suffer, but to bring a sword to free the people." Jesus stood calm and serene. Wow. One of the elders said to him, "Is it true you were born of fornication? And when born, your father Joseph And Mary, the woman who gave birth to you, had to flee from the anger of the people. But 12 of those present witnessed for him that he was not the child of fornication, but of a rightly married mother. Though many of the elders tried to make out a case against Jesus, they failed. For though there were witnesses who gave false evidence against him, others spoke in favor of Jesus. Then a law scribe came forward and testified with the others that he had heard Jesus declare that the temple was only a man-made structure, which he would destroy in 3 days. However, there was no agreement among the witnesses as to what had been said or what it meant. Some held Jesus to be a sorcerer who spoke of magic, while others held him to be a madman whose talk was not even rational. Many remained silent and thoughtful. One of the leading men among the elders stood up and said to Jesus, "Can you not speak for yourself and answer the accusations?" Jesus said, "Are the charges not being fully argued out?" The priest Hagdal said, "I ask you, in the name of the Most High Elohim, tell us, for we do not wish to make any mistake. Are you Messiah who will deliver us?" Jesus answered, "You ask this because others, witnessing what I do, say this is so. If I say I am the deliverer, I do not lie. I am the true Son of Elohim, standing at his right hand, ready to obey his will, and I speak with divine authority. I am the one destined to bring down the whole structure, replacing it with a new rule." Upon hearing this, the priest Hagdal said, "We need no more witnesses, for we have all heard him blaspheme. The evidence for treason has been given by his own mouth. He is convicted through words from his own lips. What more is required before your verdict?" But there was no little dispute among the elders, for some said, "It is no crime to say, I am Messiah who will deliver." Others said, "It is no crime for a man to be misguided and deluded, for will not the deliverer be disclosed by deeds which this man has not performed?" It was also said, "He is not fulfilling the prophets." Or is he not fulfilling the prophets? Therefore be wary in judgment. So there was a lot of arguments going on. One of the elders said, "Let us set the good this man does against the other. And is it not well known that he has the power of healing, not another man? What wrong has he done? He has not called men to arms against Caesar." The priest Hagdal then stood up and said, "If we allow this man to go free at this time, he will stir up trouble, the people being ripe for revolt. Then Caesar will send his legions against us, and the nation will be destroyed. For the hand of Caesar is heavy. We cannot set the life of one man against the lives of many. And those who would set him free are no friends of Rome, neither can they be friends of our people." Then some said, "His crime is against Rome, and not against us." But others said, "What? Shall we deliver him to Roman cruelty?" The priest Hagdal said, "This can be no concern of ours. We are shepherds of the people. Let those who speak against Caesar stand before Caesar's judgment seat. Let our judgment be that we found him guilty against Caesar, and then leave him to Roman mercy. We have no power to condemn him." Therefore, it then being daylight, they bound Jesus and delivered him to Pilate, with the verdict, "He is guilty against Rome." It was now, for many, Passover Eve, not all keeping it at the same time, for this was in dispute. Even back then, they were in dispute about the holy days and the Sabbaths. Therefore, many who could have spoken for Jesus, being righteous men, went to make their preparations for the festival. Some thought he would be set free when it was over, but most knew in their hearts he would not be released. When Jesus was brought before Pontius Pilate, governor of Judah, who sat upon the judgment seat, the law scribes testified the charges, saying, "This man stirs up the people to revolt against Caesar by taking the title Son of Elohim, thus claiming to be King of the Jews.
He says he brings swords and will purge the land with fire. He blasphemes against Caesar and seeks to bring a new rule of law into the land. He rides into the city, proclaiming himself the deliverer, fulfilling the prophecies. For whom can we be delivered?
Pilate said to Jesus, "There are many serious charges against you. Have you any defense against them?" When Jesus remained silent, Pilate said, "Tell me, if Son of Elohim is a sovereignty title, are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "Do you ask this for yourself, or are you being influenced by the things said about me?" Pilate answered, "Well, am I a Jew to know these things? Your people have handed you over, for according to their interpretation, you have made sovereignly claims. But what have you done?" Jesus said, "Is an earthly sovereign most worthy to be called the son of Elohim? Surely it is goodness and not diadem that counts. I am the son of Elohim, and this title I rightly claim. But if I have a reign, it is not of earth. Had it been otherwise, my followers would not have permitted me to be taken." Pilate said, "You are, then, a king of some kind?" Jesus replied, "As you say, I am a king, but I do not come to rule, for I was born into the world to testify of the truth. And all who honor truth listen to my words." Pilate said, "Who knows what is truth or what it means? For one man's truth is another man's deception." Jesus answered, "No man can know truth, for it is not of earth, which is a place of deception. But Yahweh knows the truth, and it is with him alone." Pilate said, "Does not Caesar know truth?" To which Jesus replied, "No man knows the truth." Pilate said, "Is the truth with you or with Caesar?" Jesus said, "Caesar's heart is in fornication, not in truth. And this you know to be true. Would you condemn me for speaking truth?" Pilate said, "Say no more." Jesus said, "See how those who uphold truth are judged by those holding authority." Then a man who was guardian at the temple testified, "This man stirs up trouble in the land, so the people are ripe for revolt, and his doctrine is not contained in Galilee, but is spreading all over Judah." Hearing this, Pilate asked whether the man before him was Galilean, and being told he was, Pilate said, "This man should be tried before Herod." Therefore Jesus was sent to Herod, who being in Jerusalem at the time was residing nearby, for he was under the protection of the governor. Herod was pleased for the opportunity to see Jesus and questioned him at length, hoping to see some miracle performed, but he was disappointed in all things. Though many testified against him before Herod, Jesus remained silent on such matters, for it was his duty and destiny to fulfill the prophecies in the holy books. Herod found Jesus guilty of blasphemy and treason, and returned him to Pilate, saying, "He has committed treason in Judah. Let him be tried for that. It has not been fully proven before me, but this I know surely. If he is released, there will be a revolt, for the people are inflamed, and your army is not large." When Pilate had taken his place on the judgment seat, and Jesus was in front of him, he said, "I am told you are a just man. Can goodness father crime?" Jesus answered, "Hypocritical goodness fathers many crimes. The people live in a night of ignorance. I come to lighten the darkness." Pilate said, "If the light is put out, does that help the people? Is it not better for the light to shine? Even faint glow is better than none." Jesus said, "Do with me as you will. I will light a flame which will consume the world, and darkness will be no more." Pilate said,
These things I do not understand. For your people have devious minds, and they make great issues over things of little importance. What else do you have to say?" Jesus replied, "I came to men to manifest the love that Yahweh has for them, as one for their brothers. I have undergone the trials and tribulations of men, overcoming the claims of the flesh, so the spirit within shines forth with strength. I have pointed the way whereby men may rise to greatness, for such is their destiny." Pilate then said to the elders and some Levites who witnessed against Jesus, "I am not a Jew, nor am I bound by any laws of the Jews. If this man has blasphemed against your Elohim, then let him be tried by your law. But do not mention it to me, for I only listen to the law of Rome." They said, "Do you say that a man who blasphemes against the divine Caesar is not worthy of death?" Pilate said, "Well, such a man should die." Well, they said, "Well, this he has done, also in proclaiming himself king. So he speaks against Caesar and Rome. Had he not done wrong to Caesar, we would surely not have even brought him to you." But Pilate said, "You are troublesome people. You tire me with these things. Well, what would you have me do with your king, huh?" They said, "These are his words. We have no sovereign except Caesar." And someone said, "And acknowledge no other Elohim." Wow. Okay. That's really what they said. Okay. Then one of the elders stood up and said, "Many have testified concerning his offenses. We know what should be done, but the power is with you. It is not lawful for us to put this man to death. Therefore deal with him as seems best in your eyes." Pilate said, "Why have you been spared the wrath of your Elohim?" Then Pilate said to those in the chamber of judgment, "Who else wishes to testify against this man?" One of the elders, a law scribe of the council, said, "Well, this man has claimed before the people that he is heir to the throne of David, but he is an impostor. He blasphemes the Holy One of our people by saying he is his son. If these things inflame the people so they revolt, then Rome pays the price. He comes forth from among the poor and disinherited, arousing the people so they seek to overthrow the stability of established authority. If his intentions are put into effect, we are all lost. He proclaims himself king and declares he will pull down the temple. He blasphemes against Caesar and says he will supersede Caesar's rule. He slanders Caesar and calls him a fornicator and a liar under our laws, which you must also uphold. He deserves to die. And if you are not against Caesar, also under the laws of Rome." Pilate said to Jesus, "The balance weighs against you. Have you anything to say?" Then Jesus did not reply. Pilate asked him where he really came from, but Jesus remained silent. Pilate then said, "Do you have nothing to say to me? I have the power to condemn or release you. What shall I do with one such as you?" Jesus then answered, "The power of Rome rests in your hands, but it gives you power over nothing except my body. Do with that as you will. It is not you, but those distorting the face of truth who are to blame." Pilate said, "If I deal with you as one way, the people will say, 'The authority of Rome supports your teachings and is not against the things you declare.' They will say your claimed datum is upheld and may even say you are preferred to Caesar. If I do this, I will certainly be called to account. For am I not the hand of Caesar whom you blaspheme and decry?" Jesus said, "I call men to a kingdom which is not yet of earth." Pilate said to Jesus, "No one is compelled to speak on his own behalf." Then to the others there he said, "Clearly this man is not guiltless concerning Caesar, but will any here speak for him?" Then one of the Pharisees stood up and said, Many could speak for this just man, but have decided their duty lies elsewhere. We are an unbending people, sometimes over-concerned with righteousness, but mercy and justice are not least among the things we uphold. What wrong has this man done to Caesar? He has spoken words which are no more than a breeze from the lips. And surely one as so great as Caesar can withstand even the greatest tempest. If Caesar be man, then words would hurt him. But we are a people knowing nothing man can do will harm the highest divinities. Therefore, we could be less cautious than others. The greater they are, the more they tend to overlook the many weaknesses and failings of men. You, who know the greatness or smallness of he for whom you are the mouthpiece, can incline towards one less knowledgeable in such matters. If you are a worthy representative of Caesar, you will uphold his greatness and reveal his indulgence to us. As to whether this man be Messiah or the deliverer, such questions can only be meaningless to Rome, for even we Jews are not in accord as to who they are or what they will do. Pilate said, "You are a perverse race, over-concerned with unworldly things and ensnaring yourselves in your own net of goodness. You cannot even agree on the dates of your own festivals or the nature of your Elohim. Instead of heroes, you have saints, yet your saintliness makes you unsaintly. You all agree to seek the truth, but dispute which path to follow, and so you get nowhere. You agree to follow your Elohim, but some say, 'We go this way,' and others say, 'We go another way.' What you say today about this man, you said yesterday about someone else. Your laws are a maze, which I will not even attempt to negotiate. Your thoughts are devious. Your hearts are unreadable scroll. I am unfortunate in my governmentship." Now, a man named Barabbas had also been brought forth to be judged, and Pilate continued, "I know not one man from the other. Who is reverent, and who is of Belial, I cannot tell. You yourselves do not know which of these two men has said and done these things, or which is your king. All I know is that there must be a strife. The rights of Caesar must be upheld, and justice must be done. The rest I leave in your hands. No two men can suffer for the same crime unless they be in association. But if no association is proven, only one may suffer. Therefore, decide among yourselves which man is to die. Both claim to be the son of Elohim. Both are deliverers. Both have blasphemed against Caesar and your Elohim, and both have struck against Caesar. One has killed, the other has not. Clemency is mine to give at this time, but clemency overruling justice is weakness. If both these men be killed, then surely the whole of the people will rise in revolt. Already the streets are thronged, and much wine is being drunk. But if one is released, those rejoicing will restrain those who sorrow. It will also divide the people who otherwise might act in accord. If one is truly the son of Elohim, then the Father will not desert his son. So it would not be wrong to condemn him, for thus too will be saved. Responsibility for restraining bloodshed now lies with you, and already the people outside are in riotous mood. Therefore, choose between the two men. Both have the same name, pretty much, but one is called Barabbas, the other is called Barhatis, or Barharetz. So choose which shall be condemned for these crimes, and which shall be released, then announce it to the people." Pilate said, "I will condemn the one claiming to be king of the Jews, for this is a crime against the peace of Caesar. Now you tell me which one he is." So all the elders of the Jews went out and consulted among themselves and sent heralds among the people. Jesus remained calm and unshaken, though he had been there for 3 hours in the judgment chamber. When consulting among themselves, one of the elders said, "One dies and one is saved. Let us be sure we save the one who will deliver us." And the Pharisees said, "It is not for us to choose which of these is Messiah of Elohim, for both are equally crazy. Neither should we choose according to their goodness or their teachings, or even by what they have done. This is a time of turmoil. Therefore, what is the life of one man against the lives of thousands? For surely this number will die if there is a revolt, which will appease the people by his release. And which one will cause less strife if he dies? May the Most High Elohim help us to choose wisely, and may he show compassion on the one who must die. Whichever dies is the savior of many, and so who are we to condemn him otherwise? Let the other be the bearer of our sins, and we will cast him out from among us. Then some Levites went and addressed the people thronging about, and they shouted, "Crucify the king! Save the deliverer!" But all were not in accord. They were many arguments. They were in many disputes. Then the elders went back to Pilate and said, "Release Barabbas." Now when Judas saw what had happened, he was exceedingly troubled, for he had only hoped that Jesus would not suffer more than confinement over the festival period. He was filled with remorse. He sought to return the silver to the temple treasurers, throwing it in front of them, saying, "I have betrayed the innocent." And they said, "It means nothing to us. Be it on your head, not ours." When they told the priest Hagdal about the matter, he said, "This money is tainted and cannot be put into the temple coffers." So they used the money to buy a plot in the clay field used by potters, and it was used for the burial of strangers having no family. Then, after putting his house in order, Judas hanged himself from a ledge. Sad. Pilate ordered that Jesus be scourged after the custom of Rome, and delivered him to the army for crucifixion. And it was then about the 6th hour. The soldiers took him to a small court where by custom men gathered, who took pleasure in tormenting the condemned. They danced in front of him, spitting and mocking. A victor's crown was plaited from thorn bush, and he was beaten with burning weeds. Placing a soldier's scarlet mantle about his shoulders, they bowed before him in mock homage, saying, "Hail you, great sovereign of the Jews!" Others covered his eyes and struck him, saying, "Now, sorcerer, tell us who hit you then." He was pricked with reeds, and the mockers made sport with him in many ways. When the cruelty was over, the soldier stripped off the scarlet mantle and replaced his tunic, taking him away to the place of execution. Because of the scourging and other sufferings, Jesus was unable to bear the stake that he carried. And a man named Simon the Cyrene, a stranger from Africa, just came by way of Joppa, and he was forced by the soldiers to carry it. A crowd followed, among which were many lamenting and wailing women. Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not be sorrowful because of me, for I approach the door of a greater life. Weep instead for yourselves and your children, for the day comes when you will have much greater cause for sorrow. If these things are done while the tree is green and full of life, what would they not do if it were old and dry?" Coming to the place of execution, which was where the skull of Adam lay buried, the soldiers fastened Jesus to the stake and raised it up in its slot. Then his feet were fastened to the rest. After this, they divided his clothes among them, but the mantle being woven without a seam was given to one selected by lot. About his neck was hung a plaque, written in Latin, which read, "Yahusha Bar Haaretz, Sovereign of the Jews." The Jews protest to Pilate about this. They protested to Pilate about this, but he said, "This is written by my authority." 2 others were crucified with Jesus, one on his right and one on his left. People passing along the road mocked and abused him, shouting, "Come down and rule over your kingdom." Some said, "Where is your all-powerful Father now?" And, "If you are what you claim to be, get yourself out of this." Many laughed, saying, "He came to save us, but cannot even save himself. Savior, save yourself first." The witnesses, who also stood about the stake, mocked him. They said, "O deliverer, now deliver yourself." At the 9th hour, the sky darkened with cloud, and there was a thunder and lightning. Thus the prophecy was fulfilled, which said, "In the valley of decision, on the day of the deliverer, the sun and the earth will be darkened." Then Jesus began to speak the words of David, and later said, "My Elohim, do not let your power drain away from me." Some standing nearby said, "Listen, he's calling on Elijah." Another said, "Let us see if Elijah will come and take him." A man came with a sponge soaked in vinegar, endued, and raised it to the lips of Jesus, but he turned his head away. Then some said, "He is ready to give up the Ruah." Jesus opened his eyes and said to those who stood near, "It is nearly over." Menelaus, the centurion who stood facing Jesus, said, "Truly, this is a man." Then someone shouted, "It is over!" And there was an outbreak of crying from the women.